So, I've been playing a lot of DMC4 recently as it's one of my favorite action games at the moment due to the great feel of its characters Nero and Dante, particularly Nero. Over the 100 plus hours I've placed on the game, I've come to understand Nero's moveset decently well, have yet to still figure out Dante. But one thing is true regardless of how well I play, and that's the usage of each character's main abilities. Mainly, Nero's demonic arm in the form of the Devilbringer and the Buster, and Dante's numerous styles, as well as with style switching. As these are staple abilities, the game motivates you to make use of them by taking a good place in the game's general combat loop. Nero's Devilbringer allows him to snatch enemies from afar and keep them close, letting him deliver big damage with both his sword and the Buster, which is a command grab. Whereas Dante's style switching allows him to be multi-purpose. If you wish to be evasive and quick, you got Trickster. If you wish to have more of a focus on your devil arms, you have Swordmaster. If you wish to have more effectiveness with your guns, you have Gunslinger. And if you wish to have a more defensive approach with parries, you have Royal Guard. They're all very fun to use and even more fun to mix and match with the rest of your moveset. So, let's take all of that away as much as we can. I watched a lot of challenge run videos for different games and they kind of helped spark this idea in my mind. Can you beat DMC4 without using Nero's demon arm? We're gonna take a look at that today. Let's lay some ground rules, though they're simple. At no point should I use Nero's arm, which includes the snatch ability, buster moves against regular enemies, or even bosses. If at some point I find myself obligated to use them, then the challenge is considered lost, and then the next objective would be to beat the game with as little demon arm uses as possible. And, just for fun, I'll have to complete the game without using any of the styles that Dante has. I can only make do with his regular sword attacks and regular shots from his ranged weaponry, because I just really hate myself. Some additional information as it was done in the game's default difficulty Devil Hunter, because I just kind of decided to do this on a whim and I don't really want to put myself through more hell than needed. Not right now at least. This is also on a save that has most of Nero and Dante's abilities unlocked as they do help and because we will need them even early on. This was done on the special edition on PC and pretty much blind in rush to the challenge itself. This didn't have any prior planning and if that shows at some points I apologize, though I hope it's entertaining at least. Without any further ado, let's get to it. Can you beat DMC4 without Nero's demon arm? In Mission 1, we have Dante's introductory boss fight. You're very much encouraged by the game to make use of Nero's Buster in this level, but it's ultimately unnecessary, especially on a save with most of Nero's moveset unlocked. He goes down pretty easily. Mission 2 is when the game actually begins. It starts out with a pack of enemies right at the church's entrance, but we make quick work of them, same with the demons that you find deeper inside of the city's buildings. Upon taking the top entrance to what seems to be a different part of the church or something, we found our first obstacle. Normally, you get the item Evil Legacy, which is what provides Nero with his snatch ability, which is also used for progression on these contact-sensitive platforms. You step on them, and these blue floating flames appear and you can fling yourself from them with your arm to progress. But our friend Nero here is really insecure about his demon arm, so he doesn't want to use it. However, we do have some options here. Just the use of the air hike, this game's double jump is enough to get us to the floor that we must access in order to progress, but we have other abilities to help us out with platforming sections. Firstly, we have Roulette Spin, which is a combo with Nero's sword Red Queen in the air, which gives us a small vertical boost upon using it, which will come in handy at various points. Secondly, we have High Roller, though specifically EX High Roller mainly. These are combo stars that take Nero toward the air, though for the purposes of this run we don't really care about it. Nero's Exceed ability allows for his attacks to become charged up, and as more levels are given to the charge, the damage, but most importantly the lengths of his attacks are extended, and this applies to EX High Roller, making one large sword swipe turn into a continuous barrage of them, giving Nero great height that he wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. We are limited movement-wise out of it, but it will still prove to be very valuable for reaching high places. Second to last, we have Streak, which is an attack that looks unassuming, but gives Nero the ability to jump off ledges with it with great speed. This boost will aid us in platforming sections that are focused on horizontal distance. And lastly, we have Caliber, another air mode that aids us with horizontal movement as well. A great tool for cutting gaps. So that's what we have, 4 moves to aid us with platforming alongside Nero's double jump. In this part, we make use of the level 3 EX High Roller to get up, use Roulette Spin in order to give us some extra height, double jump and then caliber in order to get to the top path, which is the way to progress. There's another gap further up as well, but we can simply caliber through it. And that's our first platforming challenge overcome, and we'll find much more of them throughout. Then we move on through the hallways and... oh. Well... shit. Normally we have more than enough options to make it through this gap, which though large should certainly be clearable with the abilities that we've got, but we found the biggest enemy for this run. Invisible Wall. Nero's not a Mario or a Sonic, but one thing for certain is that he does have options to help him with platforming as explained earlier. However, these options don't really matter if the game forces us within this tiny space with invisible walls. The jump with Streak is impossible, we don't gain any height from EX High Roller, and Caliber is basically useless thanks to this big invisible wall. The game made it so there's no other way to proceed here other than to use the Devil Bringer. Maybe there's a method to glitch through here? However, there's nothing I could really find. As much as I like the game, I'm no bug hunter, so finding a bug was off the table for me. Now without the existence of one, we're confined into this little hellish box. There really doesn't seem to be any way to proceed aside from using the arm. So, to answer the question, can we beat DMC4 without using the Devil Bringer? I'm really sorry, but no. No, we can't. There's other spots that are just like this one, so we're definitely about to encounter a scenario like this again, so it's not like we can make a one-time exception or something. It's a bit sad that our hopes had to be dashed away right at the start, but this doesn't mean that it's over. Let's try moving the goalpost now, as ending the video here would not be that fun. So, let's try finishing the game with the least amount of uses of Nero's Devil Arm as possible. We make it over the gap, move on forward, and find another situation just like this. Invisible wall and all. So that's twice we've used Nero's Devil Bringer, for which I've added a counter for at the top. We fight some more enemies and same thing again, except this time it's clearly not possible to go through the gap without it, as the area is not only far away horizontally but vertically as well. Regardless, there's a giant invisible wall here to impede our progress, so even if we could get there, we kind of can't. These are a third time to get through this section, and then we fight another horde of enemies. No problem. We keep making our way forward, and... okay, now this is just getting silly. This one is definitely possible to streak jump, but this gigantic invisible wall is yet again impeding our progress. It doesn't matter how high we go either, it's just kind of not going to let us. I even tried going to the control room from the outside, maybe seeing if it can be triggered from above or something, but there's an invisible wall on top. There's also structures that are in the way, so there's no visible way to get close enough to trigger the control panel either. So we use the Devil Bringer a fourth time to make our way through the warehouse, get the control panel working, and use the Devil Arm again a fifth time to go back. After taking out our frustration on a horde of enemies, we then make our way to this little mining area where we use EX High Roller and Roulette Spin to get us up, and Caliber to close the gap between us and the floor above. We then make our way to the first boss, Burial, and make quick work of him. As he's the first boss, he's not really difficult. And that's it for Mission 2. Mission 3 starts us out in the mining area that we headed toward after taking down Burial, in which we find a small group of enemies hanging around. And after handily taking care of them, we find our first challenge in this mission. A platforming section that's mostly vertically focused, in which the game intends for us to use the blue flames to make our way up. So, how do we do this? Firstly, there's a platform on the right side which we can get on easily by using the Streak's jump off the ledge. From the new platform, there aren't any more spaces we can get to horizontally, but there is a small roof above us that does act as a platform. And if we manage to EX High Roller, Roulette Spin, and double jump at just the right timing, we can completely clear this section. You'll need to be very quick with your inputs here. We make our way up to the castle and we find our first enemy type different from the scarecrows. The enemy is Frost, which usually crumbles at the sight of Nero's Devil Snatch, but since we can't use it in this run, we must find other ways to be effective against it, which luckily we do have. Nero's sword can get charged up if the exceed button is pressed at just the right time during the swing of the sword, and it doesn't matter whether or not you fully charge it thanks to Max Act. If it's charged up any amount, as EX High Roller will allow us to launch them in the air 100% of the time unless they're getting up, and the EX Streak will allow us to get it to the floor staggered 100% of the time as well. If a frost is down, you can hit them with a level 3 charge shot from Nero's blue rose revolver, which will pop them up in the air and back into the ground, making them stay invulnerable for even longer since they'll be fully downed again once coming back down. And the level 3 shot leaves a detonating charge on enemies, a really strong one at that, so they might just be dead from the moment you first shoot them. It's really effective. We make our way through the castle and trudge through more enemies where you found our next obstacle, this platforming section right here. You're meant to go on the circle thing and go through this section with the Devilbringer, but we're not going to. There's a speedrun trick here where you can interrupt your momentum with a sword swing in the air toward the left, facing away from the main path, and then use the charge shots from the revolver to push yourself back into the main hallway needed to progress. I didn't know this because I did this blindly. I didn't really check any strategies. I just wanted to see if a casual player could realistically put something together. But this doesn't mean that I didn't figure something out. I tried doing street jumps toward the platforms, but they all have giant invisible walls and the roof is littered with spikes, so we can't go above the walls. You also can't go too low, since if you go low enough, an invisible wall prevents you from going back up. My options here looked very slim, but by sheer accident and off camera I found out that if you get on the left side and jump at just the right spot, you can make it so you end up damage boosting yourself onto the platform that faces the hallway to exit the room. I'm not sure if the directions the spikes send you at is random, but I managed to do this twice, so there's that. From here on, you just do the street jump off of the ledge and jump toward the hallway, which is pretty easy. This is our last roadblock for this mission. From here on, it's just more enemies which we take out pretty easily. On mission 4, we're introduced to our biggest enemies in this whole playthrough, these weird spinny blade things. These are our biggest enemies because 1, you must use the Devilbringer to both turn them on and move them around, and 2, they're physics related. So that means that it's not as simple as just using the Devilbringer once, no. You have to angle yourself just right in order to get these things to the spot they need to be with the least amount of Devilbringer use as possible, as our challenge right now is to use it as little as possible. The other cases where we found ourselves using it was in which it was just using it once to get across a gap or something. But here, given that it requires a lot of precision to get things going even remotely well with these pieces, I expect that if someone else manages to try this, they may get a lower amount of Devilbringer uses than I did, as there's a lot of different possible angles and bounces with these things. In the best case scenario I could pull off at the start, I managed to do this part with only 2 uses of the Devilbringer. One use is to turn on the spinny thing, and the second one to get it to break the passageway open. We fight some more enemies, not a problem at all, it's pretty fun. Then we must make our way to this little dining room which has a passageway that leads to another spinner, which leads me to something I found that's very helpful. If you wish to practice a specific room just right and you find yourself messing up, you can exit it and enter back in and the spinner will be back in its default starting place. I abused this to hell and back because there's no way I was going to replay a whole level from the beginning just for not getting the correct angle on it once, which is really easy for it to happen, but I did go in and out constantly so I can get the best results I can muster. The best outcome I got was this. One Devilbringer to get the spinner up and running, then charge it up, and then use the Devilbringer again at just the right angle so that it bounces off the corner on our left, making it go straight to the hallway further to our right. Then we charge it up and move it 2 more times, which will be enough to allow us to progress,
totaling up our count to 11.
We then fight another horde of enemies in the next room, and after this we have what's probably the most difficult part of this run so far. You're meant to take this spinner all the way to the other side so that it breaks open this door for another spinner. And then you put them into the keyholes in front of the boss door and do the same for the spinner that you opened up. This part took me hours to get right, and given the physics related nature of these puzzles, I don't expect this to be the total lowest amount that you can possibly get. If someone else attempts this challenge and they get a lower amount with the same knowledge I had, then it's most definitely in the section where the saving was done. But I digress, why attempt one like this. Use the Devilbringer once to turn on the spinner, charge, and then fling it throughout the room to this location. While it may not look that good, it's putting us at the perfect angle to fling the spinner outside and right into the main path at the same time. We line ourselves upright once again and fling it across once more, finally getting toward the main path. We then use it 5 more times to destroy the guard around the other spinner, and then 4 more to get into one of its spots, getting us to
23 total uses.
Yikes. For the other one, it took a total of 3 uses since I got very lucky and managed to get the spinner to fall into one of the keyholes. The door opens and we get a boss fight with Bale for us to channel our negative emotion toward after the whole ordeal with the spinners we just endured.
Upon finishing him off, we have 27 total uses.
Here in Mission 5, just a few noteworthy things occur, like the first appearance of this enemy named Faust, which is most weak to the Devil Bringer, but a fully charged up in the Blue Rose makes quick work of them. We then find the spinner section, though it's only required to go in a straight line, which I really hope would be possible with just 2 uses of the arm.
But even with the perfect angle, it's going to take 3 uses, making our counter go to 30.
We go through some more rooms decimating enemies and then we get to the spinner here. It takes us a total of 3 uses to get it to break this barrier, which will allow us to break this chandelier, opening up a path that will lead us underground. By the end of this mission, the Devil Bringer counter is at 33. Nothing of note really happens in Mission 6, up until a certain point. We go through the little underground tunnel with these weird fish enemies, quickly dispose of them, quickly skip through the dice minigame thanks to the art of memorization, and then we make our way to Agnes. Agnes is a boss fight that does get heavily altered here, as in most others the Buster and the Devilbringer are more optional moves than anything, as you saw. We were able to dispose of each boss pretty quickly. But the difference with Agnes is that the Devilbringer is the guy's main weakness. On a standard playthrough, you grab and throw your swords constantly in order to dish out as much damage as possible. However, due to our challenge, we can't do that, and Agnes has the unique property of not being affected by the detonator of Charge Shot level 3. So really, what we have here is a boss where our best tools don't really dish out as much damage. Given his position, we can only really use air attacks against him, which don't lead into each other the best, especially since we can't jump cancel off him to chain our attacks better, so it's less effective than against other bosses. Given this, the Agnes fight turns into more of a test of endurance than anything. It's up to you to avoid the swords and electrical charges to the best of your ability while dishing out as much damage as you can, even if it's very little at a time. But the swords do drop health sometimes, so it could be worse. Regardless, we beat Agnes and make our way through the castle walls one more time, fighting Frost along the way, giving us some extra fun before we make our way into the forest. A few noteworthy things happen here. For one, the Chimera gets introduced, which is a plant that gets attached to enemies, giving them blades that operate independently from the creature that they possessed, sometimes attacking you in spots where enemies normally wouldn't be able to. It's one of the most hated enemies in the game, which is understandable until you quickly realize that Charge Shot level 3 just demolishes them completely. We keep making our way through until this part right here. Another one of those circly things, which we found in the first level. And in the same way here, we found that there was no way to get through thanks to invisible walls everywhere, no matter how high up we got. So, we had to eat one more usage of the Devilbringer, and I found that the other spot ahead had the same thing, so I just used the Devilbringer again. We make our way forward, fighting more enemies on the way until we find this spinner here. We have to get it moving in order to destroy a wall that's on the left path upon entering the forest, which we need to get through to progress. Doing this just right cost me 3 Devilbringer uses,
bringing it up to 38.
The door ahead gets us to the safe sequence with this boss named Echidna, which upon ending takes us to a small bridge that leads to the fight where we get to beat her pretty easily. Which gets me to my next point. After finishing the game, I found out that some of this wasn't necessary. By watching a world record speedrun of DMC4, I saw there's a big skip that allows you to bypass the second blue flame in the first area I mentioned. And not only that, but it directly takes you to the door that leads to the bridge that takes you to the boss. Which means that this saves up having to activate and move around the spinner, as well as the second blue flame, which saves up 4 uses,
knocking it down to 34.
By the end of the video, I'll have a counter for the amount of devil arm uses I finished with, and on the side I'll put a theoretically possible lowest given this trick. After this, we fight Echidna, and then nothing happens for the next few missions. We go through the forest, fighting many enemies, get to Credo, beat him, make our way through this castle, and fight Agnes's weird bug form thing, and even get all the way to fight Dante, and nothing. No need to use the Devilbringer. Mission 8, 9, and 10 are all free of Devilbringer usage, which is certainly nice for us and for our counter. And then we get to Mission 11. This one is really different. Level starts and we're immediately greeted by a blue flame platforming section, but we're able to clear it thanks to a well placed and timed EX high roller to a roulette spin, to quick double jump and caliber. Which leads us to the path above we're meant to go. We fight some Foss and this enemy named Mephisto, which I forgot to introduce, but he's basically just Foss but better. Regardless, we make quick work of them and then get to this spot right here. Normally, you're meant to snatch an enemy toward the platform that's on the other side of this door in order to activate it. However, because of our challenge, we can't do that. So, first we tried a bunch of things. I tried to see if somehow level 3 exceed attacks to hit the platform. No. I saw if waiting for the enemies to step on the platform would work. No. They can't walk on it by themselves. I tried seeing if the specific moves would hit the platform on the other side. No. Okay, I saw this one point above that had a floor and it was pretty close, so I thought I could do an EX high roller and jump on it. Invisible wall. Alright, there's this other floor that's not as high up but seems reachable. Another invisible wall as well. But I tried each a bunch of times before I came to the conclusion that I couldn't do them because they looked so doable. And because of it, I didn't want to give up the opportunity because maybe I could find a way to get through here. But for a while, I couldn't. You can see me here, slowly losing my sanity. It was rough, but then I thought, my level 3 charge shot has a shockwave that pushes enemies away. There's 2 enemies, so if I hit one at just the right angle, I could push the other one toward the platform. Surely enough, the moment I thought of that, one of the scarecrows got in just the right position and it worked. My strategy worked immediately. I was even angry that I spent a lot of time in alternatives that wouldn't work, because I was just so happy that I could save up this one section. After this, we have subsections that want us to use the blue flames to go great distances horizontally, but we can go through these with a well-placed and timed EX roller to a roulette spin into a wall jump, giving us just the right distance to make it through. Then we fight one more night, and finally we can move on forward and activate the last elevator without issue. Right? Well, you'd be wrong. This part right here is probably the most heartbreaking. Nero moves forward a bit by using EX high roller, so I thought I could face the right side, EX high roller just outside the little roof that we're under, and through the use of our double jump and roulette spin, I could make my way to the platform above. But no. For us to EX high roller, we need to do the lock on input first. The problem is, Nero automatically locks onto the blue flame on the left side. This doesn't sound too bad at first, but since he's facing toward the inside of the structure, that means that he'll move toward where the roof is, which means that he just won't achieve the necessary height since he's just hitting it as he does the move, and as you double jump in order to maintain as much airtime as possible. Due to this admittedly small quirk, any realistic chance of us getting distance is kind of thrown out the window as roulette spin doesn't give a substantial amount of additional height from what I've noticed, even if you do the Exceed variant. Usually it's enough for small parts of big jumps, but here we're in need of a big jump at just the right position, so we can't do much with it. Here, I just had to suck it up. I couldn't really find any alternative, not even from the speedrun, because while they do have a really good strategy within the context of a fast run, within the context of our challenge, we cannot use it. Well, this we kinda have to eat up. But I did optimize this part with the help of my boyfriend. They suggested for me to do an EX high roller in order to skip the first blue flame, which worked, and then I used double jump into caliber to close the gap and skip the last 2 blue flames of this section, saving up on a little bit. From this section, we go from 38 Devilbringer uses to 42. Then we go to His Holiness and promptly hand him an ass whooping until Nero gets bamboozled, then we have to play with Dante. Boneless Dante. Yeah, it's Dante without using styles, and unlike Nero, you're not really required to use them to progress, but my god is it torture. I don't recommend doing this to yourself. Dante is most fun when you mix and match his styles because that's his whole thing here. Whereas if you take away Nero's arm, that is a big blow, but he still has a really versatile moveset with charge shots, Exceed, and his wide variety of moves. Not saying that Dante doesn't, but I'd say it feels like he has stuff missing more than Nero with his devil arm taken completely out of the equation. Regardless, all of the game is completable. I did record my whole run with him, but nothing of interest really happened. However, I will address a few things. I thought Blitz would be worse to deal with, but the shotgun's charge shot is way better versus them than I thought. Gilgamesh's charge attacks are a godsend for tankier enemies and some bosses, and the Savior... Good god, this boss can go die in a hole. Only way you're doing damage to it is with the ebony and ivory charge shots and a very fast trigger finger, because that is where most of your damage will come from thanks to the lack of style usage. At least with style usage, you can spam Gunslinger from afar and it'll do well in terms of damage because of the pure fire rate. But here, you have to mash the button way harder than you need to with Gunslinger. It's doable, but fighting this thing took me nearly 10 minutes. I will not do that again. The game gives us control of Nero yet again, this time making us go through a boss rush with a dice minigame, meaning there's no need to use the Buster as none of the bosses required it. Not even the rematch with his holiness makes us use it, even if the game probably intended for us to parry his dashing strike with the Sparta sword. We then go outside and have to take down the big statue, which means... oh god damn it. You specifically need to use the Buster here in order to parry his attacks, which is necessary to trigger the final cutscene as far as I know. So 1, 2, 3, and it's over. Boneless DMC4 is over. By the end of it all, we wound up with 45 uses of the Devilbringer, with it going down to 42 with a speedrunning tactic that I didn't implement. And considering some optimizations with the spinners, alongside the use of the speedrunning tactic in the forest, maybe this could be taken down between 38 to 40 uses. Maybe even lower if someone really masters the spinners or uses some sort of skip that I didn't know about. Regardless, I hope you all enjoyed this video. This was all done on a whim, so it didn't take super long, but it did take effort to do all of this, so... if you could show it by leaving a comment down below or liking the video, that'd be nice. If you know something that I don't that might make this challenge more possible, then let me know, because I'm pretty interested in this now. But that'll be it for today. Bye bye.